Hi everybody, welcome to my channel. If this is the first time you've joined me, great to have you here. If you are back, returning, welcome back. My name is Mr. Francy and this is Mr. Francy Reads. Today I'm going to be doing a reading vlog, so it's really casual. Unfortunately, this is going to be my second reading vlog in a row and only second for the year, where I am doing a weekly wrap instead of a traditional weekly vlog where I cut and paste and stitch together all the days of the week or every second day or whatever it is. Unfortunately, I just haven't had the time. This year has been incredibly busy for me that I am so shocked and so surprised that I've completed as many books as I have this week. Alright, last time we spoke on Sunday, I was reading Becoming by Michelle Obama. I was not far away from finishing this book. I finished it before I went away. I loved this book. I was saying in my last reading vlog with you guys that if nothing disastrous came up that would make me change my mind, that I would give it 5 stars, and that's exactly what I did. I know that some people are interested in reading this book, others have read it, and those who read it loved it or either didn't like it, and then there are others in another camp who don't have any interest in reading the book at all, which is totally fine and I absolutely respect and appreciate. If you are interested in reading this book, I do highly recommend it. I felt, for my own experience, that this was a fast, easy to read, enjoyable read, and I don't regret picking this up for 1 minute. The little I knew about Michelle Obama, I was definitely put to the test when I started reading this book, because obviously with this being her memoir, I learned a whole lot more about her, and I just love her even more after reading all this. I just think she's an amazing person and someone that I would definitely love to have as a friend. So I gave this 5 stars. I highly recommend putting it onto your TBR. If you are intrigued by it at all, I say go for the gusto. So after reading that, I then finally picked up a book that I was incredibly eagerly anticipating to read this month, and that is this book, A Killer Cupcake by Fiona Grace, which is book 1 in the Beach Front Bakery series. Last time I spoke to you guys about this in my last reading vlog, I called it the Beach Bum Bookworm Bakery. Oh, Tiffany. It's funny that I say that though, because I did buddy read this with Tiffany and with Kay over on my Discord and a few others as well. And everyone seems to love it, and I did too. Now, what can I tell you about this book? This book follows a woman by the name of Allison who ends up through a set of circumstances, purchasing a store on a strip in LA near the beach, well, basically on the beach, and she has had a lot of formal training in French pastry baking, so she opens up a patisserie, and yeah, it had me hooked from the get-go because I love my pastries. A little bit about me that you guys probably don't know is that there was a time back in the day where I was overly ambitious and wanting to become a French pastry chef myself. So this just brought back all of those memories for me, how much I love baking in general, but how much I specifically loved the culinary art of the French patisserie style of baking. So I loved it that was included in this book. To give a negative, I did not appreciate the murder. I felt it, that the person who was murdered was predictable. The way they were murdered, I didn't like that either. I just found that to be really weird. And also, I will say this much, because I don't think this is a spoiler, but I have a point here that I can't believe hasn't been addressed yet to me, which is, the book is called A Killer Cupcake. I'm going to spoil it right here. The cupcake doesn't kill anyone. There's no cupcake that kills anyone. So why is it called A Killer Cupcake? It doesn't make sense to me. The murder has nothing to do with ingredients from a bakery at all, let alone a cupcake. So I don't get that. But what I mostly love about cozies is everything else aside from a murder, and with this book, I loved everything else aside from the murder as well with this one. And for my second cozy of the year, this one's definitely the highest rated. I rate this far and away above Class Reunions of Murder. One of the reasons being it's incredibly short. It's about 175 pages long. So it had to be fast-paced, and it was, but I appreciated it because it wasn't too fast for me. And there were still enough pages to get to know everyone, to get to know our protagonist, and to get to know all the other store owners that had their own stores on the beachfront. I just thought it was great. The ending of the book really did set us up for book number 2, and I've been highly recommended to read book 2, and I plan to do that. So I gave this book 5 stars. I just thought it was fantastic. The next book that I picked up, you guys, I searched long and hard for this book and I can't seem to locate it for myself, so it's fine. I found it on audiobook, which took a lot of effort to do because it wasn't in the usual places that I look. Audible Australia, Scribd, Audiobooks Now, Hoopla, none of these audio services had the audiobook, so that kind of annoyed me. But eventually I found the audiobook version and I gave it a go. I am talking about Confessions by Kanai Minato. This is the Patreon buddy read from Zach and Casey's booktube channel, Books and Bops, and I was really excited going into this book. I've spoken to you guys about it before, but I particularly spoke to you guys specifically about what I'm saying here in last week's reading vlog, when I was saying that I'm really interested in reading this because it seems to be an Asian-inspired thriller, and I had seen a number of Asian thrillers last year. In 2021, I'd seen Asian thriller films and I loved them. They just seemed to go above and beyond the standard thriller film for me. So I was really looking forward to getting into this book. Unfortunately, this book was not at all what I thought it was going to be. And, you know, that's the risk you take if you're a reader like me who goes into every single book blind. I don't want to read premises. I don't want to know what's happening. I want to be surprised. Sometimes surprises can be good. Sometimes they're not necessarily good. And I went through a range of emotions when I started this book. When I got about 3 pages into the first chapter, I realized right away, like, once I'd gotten to the 3rd page, I realized right away that this was not what I thought it was going to be, but I kept listening because it sounded interesting. So, yeah, so, okay, I'm going to tell you the premise a little bit later on. That may seem confusing right now, but it won't in a moment. I got to about halfway through chapter 2. Now, these chapters are incredibly long. There are 6 chapters in the whole book, and the book is over 400 pages long. So they're really, really massively long chapters. So I would say I was roughly around 150 pages in when I decided to DNF this book. I spoke to other readers who were also doing this Patreon buddy read to see what they thought and, you know, if they minded if I DNF'd it, because if I'm doing a buddy read, I feel bad DNFing it. But everyone seemed to really support me. So I put this book down and instead picked up Mary Poppins by P.L. Travers. This is a book that I borrowed from my library, and I am reading this book for Lee at Dark Roots Creations Mary Poppins Readathon, and I am so happy, Lee. Thank you so much for coming up with this readathon. You guys, if you don't know, I don't love, but I am obsessed with my dear Brando Sando. Most of you know this. Now let me tell you something that most of you may not know. I have an absolute deep love, respect, and admiration for Dame Julie Andrews. And so I just love her so much. And I have seen The Sound of Music that many times. I've seen Mary Poppins the film that many times. But I'd never read the book. And so when Lee came up with her Mary Poppins readathon, and she included the Mary Poppins book as one of the prompts for the readathon, it got me really excited because finally I have an excuse to read this book. This book is fantastic. So I've read a number of classics, and the majority of the classics that I read last year. It's because classics become classics with age, so therefore no matter what classic you're picking up, it was written a very long time ago. As a reader, I need to keep that in mind, so I do. So when certain things come up that may not be as acceptable nowadays, I have to keep in mind it was written back during that time. And so there are certain allowances that I make for classics. And there were some allowances that I did make for this book that I don't necessarily think will hold up to this day. But in saying that, I just found this to be fantastic. Disney, in case you've seen the film and not read the book, Disney takes a number of creative liberties, like, seriously. They got the bones right. The bones of the book are in the film, so they got that right. But there are some things that are either done completely differently in the film, or some things that were added in the book series that aren't in the film. So there are a number of things that have changed in a number of different ways. In saying that, I love the Mary Poppins film so much, and so the idea that I could read the book just always seemed amazing. To read the original work that paved the way for this film that I love so much to be created was an honor, and reading it, I just absolutely loved it all the way through from start to end. I'm also giving this 5 stars, so I've done well. 3 5-star books. After I was done with that, I still had time to read, so I was considering what I should pick up. And I checked out my January TBR, my very slim TBR compared to normal because I'm only reading 6 books this month. But anyway, and I only had 1 book left to read. And I didn't really want to start that book yet because I wasn't ready for it. I wanted to read it right at the end of the month. So I decided to give Confessions by Kanai Minato a second chance. So this book went from I'm considering DNFing it, no one minds if I DNFing it, to DNFing it, to upgrading the DNF status to shelved, picking it back up again from where I left off and continuing on reading as though I'd never DNF'd it before. And you know what, you guys? I am really glad that I did finish out this book. Do I think this is a book that I would want to reread in the future? Not necessarily. I think it only needs the one read for me, where there are other books that I love rereading. But this book is very different to anything I have picked up before. And now, as promised earlier, here is the premise of Confessions by Kanai Minato. Actually, let me give you my star rating. I don't really know what I want to rate it. I think I'm going to give it about 4.5. Which, for a book that I was DNFing not so long ago, says a lot. So, the premise of this book is that we open up with a middle grade teacher who is sitting her students down right at the end of the day before the final bell goes for the day to let them know that she is retiring. She goes on to tell them some pearls of wisdom, some facts of life that she's learned that she wanted to pass on to her children, the children she was teaching before she leaves. Then we get to the interesting point. Now, this was all interesting anyway. I found the discussion that she was having with the children to be very interesting, but I did also feel that maybe it was that the genre was mistitled, because to me it seemed like a psychological fiction. So just or a literary fiction, a work of fiction that makes you think. So I appreciate that. Then we get to a certain point, again in the first chapter, so it's not a spoiler, when the teacher talks about the fact that her child, who was very, very, very young, I don't remember how old she was, I envision her as a toddler, but yeah, she was like around 3, 4, something like that, had died, and that she was dealing with that. And she ends the first chapter, and this is what I think will reel a lot of people in. She ends the first chapter by saying, the 2 murderers, the 2 people that killed my child, are one of you, my students, sitting in this room, or 2 of you sitting in this room. And that's how chapter 1 ends. That hooked me in. I was like, oh my goodness me, are you serious? Yes, I'm so on board. Now it's a thriller. Let's see what happens. And what Kanai Minato did, which is something that I have not seen before, is that every chapter, as I say, they're long chapters, every chapter takes the perspective of another character that was integral in one way, shape or form to the death of this girl. And I really just appreciated that. The second perspective was interesting, but of course it did lead me to originally DNF the book. I got through the end of the second perspective and I thought, this is okay, we'll see how we go. But by the time I got on to the third perspective, I was hooked into this book. Let me tell you. Let's start that as a saying, hooked into this book. I mean, it was just so well done. Not to mention, without giving away any spoilers, the last 2 paragraphs blew my mind. Kanai Minato, I don't know what happened there, but it was so good. I don't know what you were thinking when you wrote the ending, but oh my gosh, yes, love it, so good. It all just came together so well. Oh my gosh, Especially after reading those last 2 paragraphs, I want to read more Kanai Minato because those last 2 paragraphs were so good. Because I was just thinking, okay, we're winding now, we're getting to the end of the book, and then we get those last 2 paragraphs, and it's like, whoa, that was so good. So, highly recommend this one as well. So now to what I'm going to do for the rest of the month. Well, I'm going to be reading the final book for the month, and you guys, this is a book that physical copy has eluded me for far too long. If you wanted my book, if you have seen my physical copy of this book somewhere, please get it to me pronto, because I've been waiting 2 months for this book that, you guys, no joke, on the tracking information said it was in the truck to be delivered a month before I said anything to the company. I've been waiting 2 months for my book. Where's my book? But it's fine. I've started the audio version of it anyway, and that is going to be my 3rd cozy mystery of 2022, and that is this book, Assaulted Caramel by Amanda Flower. I am so scared to order more books in this series, the physical version, because if what happened with the first book with me, as I said, I'm still waiting to get the original physical the original paperback that I'd ordered, and if I love this series, I will want to have all the physical books on me as a memory. That's why I like to purchase physical books, so I have them on my shelves as a memory, and I just don't know. I'm a little scared to order more if I'm going to go through the same thing. But anyway, I've started this book. I'm 2 chapters in. I'm really greatly anticipating it because I've heard so much about the Amish Candy Shop series. And 2 chapters in, we're just getting really to know a little bit about the main character. She has moved, she has gone to visit her grandparents because her grandfather is unwell. I think he's either sick or dying or something, but we don't really know much else. So more to come, obviously, as we do move along. But that is it. That's where I'm going to leave it for this week. I have updated you guys on everything. So my plan for the remainder of the week is just to continue reading the Amish Candy Shop series. How did your reading week go? Let me know in the comments below. But in the meantime, that is where I'm going to leave it, letting you guys go with peace, blessings, and so much love. Mwah. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Subscribing to the channel really does help my channel to grow. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Happy reading!